male.
Yeah, yeah.
So I went to school with all male.
You were
In
the
fact,
only female there?
I was the only female there in most of my classes.
Wow.
But then I met a young lady from Cuba, because you know that was during the crisis, the
Yeah,
Cuban crisis.
right.
And so she was from Cuba, and she was in different classes. We were majoring in different things.
Mhm.
So I bumped into her, and there were about 3 girls, as I remember.
Mhm.
But just recently, I was given an honor called a Legacy Award, because I didn't realize that I was the first black to graduate from Xavier University.
You were?
Mhm.
Wow, I didn't know that either.
They gave me this honor about 2 years ago.
Mhm.
But I didn't know it because I wasn't there looking for black or white.
Yeah.
I was there to get the
Get your
excellent,
education.
get the
Yeah,
excellent
yeah.
education, and that's what I poured myself
what year
into
was
in
that?
I graduated in 1971.
And you were the first black person to graduate?
First black woman.
Woman, okay.
First black
to
woman.
graduate from Xavier.
Because I remember Ken Blackwell being there, but I don't remember what year he graduated.
Yeah, I remember he was there then.
And I remember Steve Reese being there,
Uh-huh.
and I don't know what year he graduated.
Okay.
But those were about the only 2 black faces that I saw on
Okay,
Xavier campus.
okay.
Well, of course, I continued with my master's to get my master's degree, started work then for the Cincinnati Public Schools,
Mhm.
teaching. And of course, about 2 or 3 years after I started teaching at the Cincinnati Public Schools in the West End, I was at Porter, and we were in that era of what do they call it? Integrating the schools.
Right.
And so therefore, I was moved to Western Hills High School.
Mhm.
And I was among the first black group to go out
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
So that is the kind of community that I was serving. And so I stayed there, of course, until I retired.
Wow. Western Hills.
At Western Hills. I stayed there. And at Western Hills, I started programs like, because they had no Black History program, and you would find this very interesting. The first year I was there, the Black History program consisted of not Bill Cosby, but what is the other comedian and that day
We had Flip Wilson,
that wasn't Flip Wilson.
Richard Pryor, who else did they have?
Red Fox.
Red Fox.
No, it wasn't that. There was another one.
Moms Mabley. Who's the other guy?
But anyway, it
Big
was
guy.
a comedian.
Okay.
And
Big Martin. Yeah, I remember.
It was a comedian that the principal played
Mhm.
over the intercom
Mhm.
every
That was Black
day.
History.
And that was Black History, doing that
Wow.
Black History program. And the kids were in the classroom, they were laughing, and they were having, and my heart went, oh my God, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
So I vowed to myself immediately that it would never happen again, as
Mhm.
long as I was there.
Yeah.
And of course, I had lots to do. I had my child, raising him, going to his meetings at school and all of that. But I took it up on myself to start a real Black History program.
Hold that thought right there. I want to make a point about your early days in college. You went to Tuskegee.
Yes,
That's where Dr. Herbert Smitherman went. And he
Yes.
was the first one we interviewed here on Eavesdropping Yellow.
okay.
You
Okay.
wouldn't happen to have known
No.
him then. Okay, I don't know
Mm-mm.
if you guys are close in age, but that's,
Mhm.
I think Tuskegee is one, or should be at least in the minds and in the hearts of black people, one of the most revered schools in this
In the
country.
It
Yes,
should be.
I
It
believe
should be.
that.
Right. It should
Because
be.
of how it got started and what they
What
did
did.
in terms of
Terms of-
self-help to build
Yeah,
their buildings,
building,
make the
make the
bricks and all of
yeah.
that, you know, and Booker T. Washington's philosophy.
Well,
about it.
on my nightstand in my bedroom are 2 books. The Bible,
From
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 slavery.
slavery. Yeah, Booker T.
Booker T.
Yeah.
And next to that it's still in my bedroom, not in my library, but Carver's Life Story.
Mm-hmm.
Because these things have so much meaning
That's
to
right.
me.
That's right.
And then from that I go to Harriet Tubman.
Mm.
These are like my heroes.
Mm.
I don't have any living heroes. I don't
Yeah.
have any.
Yeah.
I have to go to the books for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And in developing the school a lot, I would read Harriet Tubman
Right.
when I would have struggles.
Yeah.
And I just remembered how she would go back again.
Keep
She
going
went all
back.
the way to
Yeah,
Canada, right?
Yeah,
But then she would go back again.
yeah,
And I kept saying to myself, I don't want to be one of those people that go to Canada and stay.
yeah. That's a good analogy.
Right?
Very good
I don't want to
analogy.
be one of those people.
Yeah.
I want to go back and I want to do something.
Mhm.
So most of that development, those principles came out of my black school and Tuskegee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the connection I want to make, especially with this program, Eavesdropping on the Elders,
Mhm.
that you said you don't have any living heroes. And my message has always been, I wrote a book called Black with Knowledge, Stuff We Need to Know.
Mhm.
And in that book is a section called Eavesdropping on the Elders. And
Mhm.
the point I was trying to make is that we need to look back and learn the lessons, heed the lessons from our elders who have
Mhm.
gone on, because they've left those lessons for
Oh,
us.
yes. Oh, yes.
And it is sad to think in many cases that we don't. And
Mhm.
people like Tubman and Frederick Douglass and all the folks whose names we like to invoke,
Vote, right.
we can invoke those names, but do we do what they
nothing,
told us to
right.
do?
That's what I say, we wear their shirts.
Exactly, right.
We speak their words.
That's right.
We
that's
sell
right.
their shirts.
That's right. We make money off
We
their
make
names.
money off their names.
That's right.
But we do not delve into the principles that they have.
Exactly.
And that should be the guiding force.
That's
I
right.
know it is for my life.
Yeah.
You know, because there are some disappointing times.
Yeah,
You know,
definitely.
you struggle, you reach out to try to help people,
Oh, I know.
and sometimes they bite you,
That's right.
they bite your hand and you're trying to feed them.
Right, right.
You know,
That's right.
and so you need that strength, and of course God gives you that
Oh,
strength.
sure. Yeah.
But nevertheless, you have to focus on, you know, and I would ask myself, well, what would Harriet Tubman do in this case?
That's good.
And then I would say, well, what would Mary McLeod Bethune do?
Yeah,
Or what would Booker T. Washington do?
Right.
You see,
yeah.
and that gives me strength when
That's
I
right.
get answers
Yeah.
to those kinds of questions.
Right.
Because I'm sure they were
They had
dealing
frustrations
with
too.
the same
That's
kind
exactly
of
right, the same thing.
population that we are having to deal with
Exactly.
today.
That's right.
And then I said, well, you know, I have much more than they had.
Mhm.
You know, I don't have to face the same segregation
That's right.
that they had to
That's right.
face.
Yeah.
And so then it's easier for me. So that's very consoling to me.
Yeah.
And
I think
I
about
can,
the same things in the work that I do. I think about Marcus Garvey and Booker T. and those that you named as well, and many others who went through the threat of even being lynched to do
right,
some
do
of the
something
things that they
there,
were
that's
doing, just
right.
trying to help their own
that's
people.
right.
And I said, well, you know, if they did what they did,
Yes.
and I always had this other thought too, Mrs. Mims, suppose they had stopped. Suppose they had thrown up their hands
That's
and said,
right.
forget this,
That's
I'm
right.
not gonna do this
That's
anymore.
right.
My
That's what I
people are,
said.
you know, they're not
That's right,
listening,
Jimmy.
I'm not gonna
That's
do
right.
anything.
That's why I use the analogy of Harriet Tubman.
Yeah, kept going
You know,
back.
She could have
You're
gotten
not
in
gonna stay in
Canada.
Canada.
Suppose she could stay in Canada. She could have
That's right.
stayed in Canada.
We cannot stay in
And
Canada.
let's suppose if she had just stayed in Canada.
Right,
And never made those trips back.
Yeah.
Look at the people who would have been left behind.
yeah,
And so when my friends scold me about the hard work that I do a lot of times,
Yeah.
and say, why do you
why
do
do you
it?
do it? I've gotten that same.
And
thing,
why do you
know.
keep hanging in? And
Right.
why do you keep struggling? You don't
Mhm.
have to do this.
Right.
I told them that I can't stay in Canada.
Right, that's good, I like that.
That's my
I'm gonna
analogy.
adopt that, I'm gonna steal that.
gonna
I
steal
can't stay in
that.
Canada.
I can't
That
stay in
sounds like a
Canada.
speech to me.
Yeah. It's Mims' speech, remember?
Yeah, right, I
Give
could
me,
not,
give
oh
me credit
yeah,
for
I'm
that.
gonna give you attribution, that's right, I
Yeah.
could not stay in Canada,
No,
that's
I
excellent.
can't stay
But
in
folks
Canada.
like Malcolm and Marcus and Martin Luther King, suppose he had just said, forget this, I'm going through too much, I'm not taking this, I got a family at home, I'm not gonna do this. Suppose he had
Right.
stopped.
Mhm.
Who would we celebrate now, you
That's
know,
right.
in
That's right.
January? I mean,
That's right.
there are certain people who have been sent to do certain things.
I believe that.
Each one of us has a certain thing, a certain talent, certain resource that we've been blessed with. And as God told Abraham a long time ago, he said, I'm gonna bless you, but I'm give you a blessing, and this blessing will not only be for you, it'll be for others.
Others, right,
And
for all
that's-
generations.
we're about,
Right.
we should be about sharing the talents and
Talents,
resources
right.
we have.
And then working it together, you know, not trying to step in any other path. I know a lot about education, but I don't know
Mhm.
everything about
Right,
education.
right.
You know a lot about business and
Mhm.
entrepreneurship,
Mhm.
but it's not everything. So
That's right.
it's collaborating with
There you
people who
Yeah.
are doing some of the same things.
Right.
But as long as our focus is the same, that we are
Yeah.
focusing on the salvation, figuratively, of our whole race.
That's right.
And there is no need to complain, I don't think, about what other people are doing to us.
That's right.
I mean,
That's
because
right.
it is not what was done to my grandfather. It is not what was done to my father.
Yeah.
You know, I just came from my family reunion, and my father had to borrow $54 for something.
Mm-hmm.
And he had to mortgage everything he had,
Wow.
all but his children,
Man, for $54.
for $54. And then I understood then, I said, oh, that's why Daddy was so frugal,
Yeah.
because he meant to pay that back.
Mm-hmm.
And my father always kept money. I mean, he held on
I
to...
noticed that about the older folks when I was growing up. They
Right,
always
right,
had some
they
money.
always had some money. And so
Right.
my father was very... And then I said, well, now maybe that's where I got my frugality.
Yeah.
Because that is one of the ways I've been able to run the school.
Oh.
I took what America threw away
Mm-hmm.
and built 2 institutions.
All right.
I did not have any help
Mm-hmm.
from Marva Collins.
Mm-hmm.
It was taking the little things, and I had learned to take the little things.
Yeah.
When we got ready to build our school, buy our school, when we moved from the basement of the church
Mm-hmm.
to buy the school in 1993, I approached 10 people, because the Jewish people said they wanted $40,000 down on the building. They
Mhm.
wouldn't rent the building. And of course I had no money, but the school was growing.
And that was the building over on
The building in Rosemont.
Yeah, I know. I
right.
came over there once. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what I did, I sat down and I said, okay, no one will give me $40,000 just like that. I
Right.
don't have the track record.
Right.
I said, but let me go to people. And what I did, I asked 40 people for $1,000.
Collective. That's the collective again.
That's collective
That's
again.
right, right.
So the first, I wrote my name down as first, my second, my husband's name's down second, that was 2,000. Right after the man left my house and told me that's what he wanted. And I looked up and I said, God, how am I going to get this money? And he said, ask and it shall be given.
Yeah.
So it was in the next 10 days, I was calling those Jewish people, telling them that I had the money and I wanted the school. And they were so shocked. They gave me the key, they gave me everything. And they had not even moved out yet, because they were moving to Lasantaville up there.
Yeah.
But those 10 people, they were school teachers,
Mhm.
they were average people.
Yeah.
They did not have lots of money
Right.
to give, but the $10,000, the $40,000 came from 40 people giving $1,000.
I've always said that if each of us do a little, we
Little.
all have a lot.
And we all have a lot.
Now, you stopped at, when I took you back to Tuskegee, you stopped at just before you started the schools. Now, that
Mhm.
was in what year? It wasn't 93, because
Oh,
you
you
started
mean started
working on
school
that
here?
before.
Oh, yes, I started
I
in
don't wanna miss
1990.
anything.
Okay.
Okay,
I
let's start
started,
there.
okay, and move forward.
Mhm.
In 1990, we started the school in the basement of Olivet Baptist Church.
Okay.
Reverend Booth, you remember
Yeah,
him?
yeah.
He allowed us to start the school there for the use of the school, just to pay the gas and electric,
Mhm,
you know.
mhm.
And so that was a great help. And then of course he was one of those supporters. He headed up a support group to help to support the school. And so he had contacts that I didn't have, and he could garner help from
Now,
a
see,
car
that's
lender.
something else I didn't know about him. You just educated me on something else that I didn't know
yes,
about
he
him.
was
He did a
very-
lot.
Oh,
in this
the
town.
man did so much,
Yeah.
and he doesn't get the credit for what he
Mhm.
did, because he was very, very quiet.
Yeah.
He wasn't as flamboyant as
Like
some
you.
of the other.
Yeah, like you.
And so he was very good, and he just was kind of like my father figure, that somebody that I could lean on and I could talk to, or I could go to him for advice. And so we worked in that church we started with 43 students,
Mhm.
and we had a one-room schoolhouse.
Mm.
And we worked that until the enrollment, our kids did so well.
Yeah.
They were just off the charts in terms of their test scores. And everything was working great, and so people were coming.
Yeah.
They were just coming from everywhere. And the school grew. By the second year, we had about 100. The next year, we had 160. The church couldn't hold
Okay,
any more.
okay.
So that summer,